welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. I'm Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser, and today I am amongst the crew of the Porch Pirates. Arr.
Arr. Oh my God.
We had our very first Porch Pirate, as you can hear on our Patreon behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And wow, don't we feel special?
I'm Trevor Keyson. I'm a super chub, and I guess I am a first mate. I guess we're Porch Pirates now. I got my striped shirt, my little dingly earring, my bandana, and yar.
He makes a fine smee.
Hi, my name is Michael Willer. I am a chubby chaser, and I guess that makes me the Porch Pirate deckhand. I'm swabbing the decks and
swabbing the porch.
Yeah.
Hey, my name is Don. I'm a big chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I'm reminded of the old joke, we are butt pirates. No. Oh, we are butt pirates. You know?
Right.
Oh, dear. What's this on the road? Ahead?
Welcome back, dear listeners.
So we want to say thank you to all our friends and patrons on Patreon and our partners. Remember, you can save 15% off your bearskin order with promo code BigFatGayPod. Also, reminder, we're going to be discussing Hairspray. That's the 2007 one, that movie with John Travolta and Nikki Blonsky. And we're going to talk about that in the episode that drops on April 30th. It's available to watch for free on YouTube. You can probably find it on other streaming services.
Yeah.
And finally, we are going to take a little hiatus for the month of May, returning in early June.
Take a little break and get charged up to get to Bigger Vegas nice and, on an upswing.
Exactly. But meanwhile, you can still speak with us on Discord or read our newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. Drop us a line with your email on our website.
Yeah, just go to the website and there's a little pop-up that's really easy.
Yeah.
Discord has been popping off. It has been so cool seeing, thank you to the people who sort of joined early on Patreon in order to help us kind of play test things out and make sure it was running smoothly. There's been some fantastic discussions already. Lots of cool people, very nice. It's supposed to be kind of nice, cozy vibes. And all of the rants go in the rant discussion.
Yes.
If you need to kind of let some steam off, there's a place for it too.
That's great.
What's up next? Let's get into the show, the pop culture.
I'm kind of sad that people can't see the dance numbers that go on.
They got to see us live at Bigger Vegas.
It's just worth it for the Trevor shimmy.
That's right.
So this is exciting. This is kind of a cool, this is one of those tentatively, it's a good thing, we hope. In Variety, this article is titled Indonesian Animation Jumbo Breaks Records, Heads for Global Release. So this animated film called Jumbo, which we'll talk about in a second, released in Indonesia and shattered their box office records. Everybody's watching it. And this is a box office that's normally kind of dominated by horror movies.
Yeah.
And so this kind of feel good animation movie is a total departure, but people are eating it up. Has lots of good press on social media, apparently. And it's done so well that they're actually gearing up for an international release. Initially, they're just going to release to Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei Darussalam. But after that, who knows? So there is a trailer you can watch, but it's in Indonesian, as you can imagine.
But it's pretty cool what it is, I think.
Yeah.
There are auto captions, which I watched the trailer on auto captions to kind of see what it was about. That a quick little synopsis. So, desperate to prove to his peers that he's more than a chubby kid that never wins at anything, little Don wishes to win his local talent show by performing a stage play inspired from a storybook written by his late parents. When, unfortunately, a bully steals that book, at the same time, a little ghost appears from the spirit world asking for Dawn's help to reunite her with her parents' spirits. So now the two friends embark on an exciting adventure to help each other and learn the true meaning of friendship.
I love this.
Yes.
I love it. And I love that the fat little gay kid wants to do what many fat little gay kids wants to do, put on a musical.
I don't think we know that he's gay.
We don't know if he's gay, but he's theatrical.
He is very theatrical.
Embrace the code word, Trevor.
So I have some questions here. If you watch the trailer, there are a couple things that I want to just sort of bring up to the group to discuss, because I feel like it's sort of you want to root for it and it feels like it's just going to be a good thing. But then there's also two things. One, there are fat jokes. I don't know. They're probably basically just harmless. But I just wanted to kind of point that out. There's a point where he's like, maybe, if I win this talent show, they won't call me Jumbo anymore. And then the music cuts out and it cuts to him stuck in a hole and his friends are trying to pull him through the hole, but he's too fat.
Oh,
so like,
that's a bummer.
There's that. I don't know if it's like kind of harmless, but also it's not great. What do you think?
I didn't have that experience of it because I didn't get the translated version. I watched the version just with the subtitles of the native language and was trying to sort of wing it from there. And I'm disappointed to get that extra context because just looking at it, I wasn't getting that. It's
mostly not like that.
Yeah.
It's mostly good stuff. It's just, but then you see a moment like that and you're like, well, is that the only time it's there or is the movie filled with stuff like that?
I don't ever love the bullying things, but that's also very real. I at least like that this is not like Living Large, the movie we discussed from last year, where it's like, it is all about he's a fat loser.
Yeah. It's definitely not that.
He's fat and he is really trying to put on a show and he's being bullied and he's then on this adventure and kind of it is the hero's journey. He is the reluctant little.
Yeah.
And I also like that they're not like, with Living Large, where it's like he's going to sing a song at the end about
being fat,
being fat and like how he's going to lose weight.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Thank God.
And there's no weight loss overtones, nothing like that.
Look, it is no secret, and we have talked about on this show many times, that fat people often do not fit certain places. That is a staple of one of the things we discuss and how to get around that. And I think there's a huge difference between him having trouble fitting through a space and all his friends helping him out, which is, what we talk over and over again about what a good chubby chaser should do, or, whether he can't fit and he gets left behind.
Well, okay, to be clear, different contexts here. These are just kids who are friends. But the point of that moment, as presented by the trailer, is that you were supposed to laugh at him. That's a joke. So I get what you're saying, that like it could have been done worse or in some other way, or like, maybe it's a little more realistic. But those aren't the point of that moment in the movie as presented by the trailer. It's meant to be funny that he got stuck, that the fat kid got stuck.
Yeah, or, maybe it's meant to be adorable.
We're hitting a situation here where you're both right. Like it's being used in the trailer the way it's being used in the trailer. We don't know the way it's used in the movie.
That's
exactly
true.
Yeah.
So what Michael was talking about is an absolute valid criticism for the trailer, but we don't know where the movie's going to go with it. Trevor, what are you thinking about this?
So something I don't know if anyone else noticed towards the end of the trailer is there was something, I can't remember if it was like presented by or supported by, I think the film got some funding from different snack food companies.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Fascinating.
Because I saw all these logos and it's a lot. I think there might also then be like some maybe children's soap or something, kind of like a Johnson & Johnson type thing. And I was like, and I'm curious, is there going to be product placement?
Yeah.
And like, would we notice the product placement because it is all these companies that make, kind of Indonesian snacks?
Right.
And if that has anything like related to fatness, like, I don't know. That was just something I noticed. I'm like, and I'm curious to see how that plays out, if it is anything.
I mean, here's my take. There's going to be sponsorship, just because that's how the arts work these days. And my thing is, I actually would find it really refreshing if Nabisco were a sponsor rather than, some weight loss company.
Yeah, for sure. Or like, Salads and Co.
Yeah.
Like something.
I would rather have Nabisco sponsor it than Weight Watchers.
Eli Lilly at the end. Oh God.
So the last thing I wanted to bring up, which is a little bit more gray area, is this plot is something we've talked about before, which is the idea that he, as a fat person, needs to prove his value by winning the competition before people will accept him and stop calling him fat. So my question is, we've criticized that type of plot before, but is there room for something like that where it doesn't feel bad or slimy?
I don't think we know that from the trailer. I think there's lots of context that we don't know how it ends.
I would also add that, like, right now, we can't help but look at the world of fat through an American lens. This is a movie coming at us from Indonesia. I don't know the situation of fatness in Indonesia. I don't know where they are culturally with that. So I'm going to have some additional time to digest the context that this message is coming from before I assimilate it into my world.
Yes, I agree, Don, and I'm curious if they like dub it and if it gets, maybe a different distributor, how things will change in translation, if it'll have a different title, because it's like, well, you can't call a kid's movie about a fat kid Jumbo, even though that's what
they call him.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how this develops, if it'll get a US release, if it'll be dubbed. I mean, they say plans, for basically everywhere, and how things will play out with it. I have much higher hopes for this than Living Large.
I actually am looking forward to, I think this is going to be a grass fire. I think in a US distribution, I think it will be so dangerous because it'll be this thing where it says things you're not supposed to say, but it's important representation. I think it's going to be like the very idea that you have a movie starring a fat kid in the first place.
But in any case, leaving behind Indonesia, we have an eagle to bring us back to the United States. Eagle, take us away! Fat Watch 2025! While we are grappling with what Jumbo might conceivably mean to fat audiences in the United States, we are grappling yet again in a hot political world where all eyes turn again to Donald Trump, who has announced his most recent medical physical, which is something he has to do for his presidency. And he has released various stats that he claims to be his physical characteristics, right? Meaning his height, his weight, his cancer status, and all that stuff.
Is this something like, I know that this is something that is done, but like, is there a law that the public has to know the president's status?
No, but it has been traditionally seen as the president's responsibility to prove that he is.
Yeah, and someone's releasing your tax returns. He missed that one.
If he doesn't have to declare his investments, he for sure doesn't have to declare his height and weight.
It's tradition, but it's also something that nobody's going to be double checking.
Yeah,
because medical records are sealed. What we're running into is a problem where he is releasing stats that do not sound right to most of the country. And it has led to a phenomena of a whole bunch of other people in the United States posting pictures of themselves saying, I am the same height and weight as the president claims to be. This is my body. Allow us to compare. And it not holding up in general.
Well, and using the comparison to point to, you see, he's lying to us about how fat he is.
Yes.
It's led to this huge media storm around where a lot of people are making accusations about the president's lying about his weight in a lot of different venues and different ways. And a friend of the show, Tigress, put out a video that went into a lot of detail on how to think about some of this.
Here we go again with another round of, is Donald Trump lying about his weight? Well, don't actually pose that as a question. You just posed that as a definitive. Donald Trump is lying about his weight. There is no possible way that man could weigh what he says he weighs. Let me tell you something. If I invited you right now to try to guess how much I weigh, almost all of you would probably be wrong. And even if I were standing next to somebody else who's the same height as me and has a completely different body type as me, and you tried to guess what both of us weigh, and the reality was that we both weighed the exact same thing, most of you would probably get that wrong. Bodies come in all different shapes and sizes, compositions, where the curves are, where the bumps are, where the rolls are. And this whole thing that y'all are doing of like, well, Thor is the same height that Donald Trump says he is, and he, weighs the same thing, and look how different their bodies look. Yeah, that's actually possible. That is actually possible. They could weigh the same thing and be the same height and have completely different looking bodies. And this might actually be one of the cases where this man is telling the truth. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter whether he's telling the truth about his weight or not, because you don't actually care whether he's telling the truth about his weight. What you care about is that this is an opportunity for you to get on the internet and call somebody fat. You are showing through your tones and your facial expressions and the comments that you allow and respond to and the gifs that you are laughing at and all of, the reposts that you're making and all the things. You are showing, so many of you are showing, that while you want to make this argument that it's not about body shaming Donald Trump, it's just about getting to the truth. I'm so upset that he's lying about this. I'm so in disbelief that he's lying about this. No, you're not. You just want to call somebody fat on the internet. You just want to call somebody fat on the internet. You've been told that it is body shaming to call people fat unless they are fat activists like me who actually use the word fat. But even then, you will try to use it to body shame me, those people, all of us, right? But here is an opportunity to call someone fat. And then when anybody calls you out about it, you can just be like, no, this isn't about that at all. It's not about body shaming at all. It's not about making jokes about his body. It's about the truth. It's about the truth. Look, if you get on your platform talking about that mother is fat, you enjoyed saying fat that way entirely too much for me to believe that you give any damns at all about the truth. You just wanted to call somebody fat. You really just wanted to call somebody fat. Just admit it. Just admit it.
So I just want to add to this statement because somebody might be wondering, like, well, Tigress, is that really possible that somebody could weigh the same and look that different? I, in my own example in this case, take me right now at 230 pounds, 5'10" and me a year ago, also 230 pounds, exactly, very different body types. And let me tell you, that's like the tip of the iceberg. Like, people's bodies vary so much in composition and shape and structure. Like, we shouldn't have to be saying this, right? Like, this is so beside the point, but it's like insane that you have to explain this to people.
Yeah. I also want to get underneath all this. As we've said, Donald Trump won't release his tax returns, won't release his financial holdings, but he is going to grandstand about his fitness level, whether or not it's true. And that doesn't matter. That's really not relevant. Except as Don points out, he really can't get caught lying there because it's literally nobody's business. But he's using that as a way to play into the whole macho alpha male. Isn't he a strong, powerful leader? And so that's why it's being shared. And then on the other side of that, there's people who are going like, no, he's not. And the thing is, don't question the height and weight. That is so not the central part of this argument. Question the idea that someone's height and weight makes them macho or not macho, or a strong leader or a weak leader.
And he has shown over and over and over again that he is extremely good at creating smoke screens.
Yes.
So look what we're doing. We're talking about his fucking body type. Who cares? Who fucking cares? Let's talk about what he is actually doing and not doing on the policy side of things, what his actual stances are. Like, but this is the discussion we're having. It's insane.
I also just love her pointing out the retort of it's about the truth, because it is, because like we are beyond truth with this administration.
We live in a post-truth world.
Yes. And it is all about, that big fat liar is fatly lying about how fat he is.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating because I mean, I feel like it's gotten kind of better just because everything is just so insane that people don't have really the bandwidth to address everything.
No, exactly.
But it is still so many fat people doing it. And it's just like, the call is coming from inside the house. Like, you just not get, like, he doesn't care. He just, and like, there's just so much distance, like, but you're just hurting fat people and just like, in such a grating way.
I feel like it's like throwing a boomerang and then just turning on the spot to face someone behind you and saying, ha, look how far I threw it. And then it's just going to come back and smack you in the head. Like, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah.
I just find the conversation confusing because I don't care what he says. He is a liar. We know this.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to distance himself from the fat crowd that he's a part of. Like, regardless of what his weight is, he is fat.
Well, it is worth saying, Don, that given that he is fat and his regime is so anti-fat, he is going to go a long way to not be with those people whom he's trying to crush.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
By just ignoring it and allowing him to pretend he's not one of me, right? That he doesn't share my body type, then he gets to escape all the criticisms that he's inflicting on me. That doesn't sit well with me either. So I don't know what to do about this.
Yeah.
And like, again, I'll be the black sheep here. I don't mind letting people be called things that hurt them when they don't hurt me. Like, as a fat person, if I see someone that's horribly wounded by being called fat, I don't feel the need to defend them. I don't know how to phrase this.
Oh, but I think what's different is like, because I get that, and I feel like I was there for a long time, but in the case of a public figure, there is so much distance. He isn't actually being hurt by that because he is hurting just the people in the room.
Bingo.
Yeah.
The act of it, yes. I agree with you on that. But if he's working that hard to pretend he's not fat, why should I hand him that sort of distancing? Why should I hand him that illusion?
Right.
Because it stigmatizes fat. Like, we're digging our own graves by doing that.
I would emphasize that by going back to what Trevor and initially Tigress said, which is, this has nothing to do with Donald Trump. This ultimately has to do with the poster and their readers who are reinforcing the idea that whether he's fat or not, fat is bad. We can all agree on that, for God's sake.
Right.
It's that's what this is cornered in. That's what, and the excuse of, well, but it's not the truth, or but it is the truth, is the same as like, well, is it healthy? It's a distractor. It's a distraction.
It's the same.
And that's my problem. Every time if I want to stand on that hill, then I have to explain that being fat isn't bad. And now we're not having any sort of actual discussion around the issue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I watch a lot of Jimmy Kimmel and late night talk show hosts, and they are going balls to the wall for the Trump is fat thing. And I don't love that. There's no way to respond to it without becoming a distraction.
Well, I would argue that is the issue.
But I think that's true if you ignore it too.
Right. I'm saying I think that is the issue. I think what people are actually arguing about is like not actually the problem. Because if we're going to argue about Trump, why are we focused on his weight?
Is that the biggest issue in the Trump regime?
There's other things to argue about.
But I think to most people, it is the most obvious example of his lying. It's just the easiest one to point out.
It's probably helpful to just go back to what we, I think, all agreed in maybe the first or second episode of the show, which is it's not other people's right to comment on someone else's body. There's a lot of things that Trump is an absolute monster for.
But I think when he becomes a living example of saying fat is bad, but I'm not fat, everyone else but me is fat.
The hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy of it is not something that I'm comfortable allowing slide, and I don't think it benefits anybody to do so.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm not saying run around and scream, he is fat. I don't think that's a good point. But when he runs around screaming, I am not fat, I think it's not a great idea to say, yeah, fine, I won't bring it up. Okay, if you say so. No, I don't want to do that. And I don't feel obligated to. All right. Anyway, we have a main topic we have to get to.
Yes. So there's kind of a viral story right now that I saw some videos of, and some listeners submitted this, of a aquarium in China. There's a thing that a lot of aquariums and like sea parks are doing now where they have mermaid performers kind of just like waving and doing kind of sometimes like aquatic dances, and mermen, and in the case of this aquarium in China, a fat merman. I tried to research this and I found it was like a translated news story, but he started as he was cleaning the tanks initially, and then he started to kind of do like a mock mermaid tail with a sarong, and people loved it so much that he is now a performer and doing kind of like these, I mean, kind of Chris Farley-ish fat male mermaid bits, but it has become very popular. And I don't like the like tee-hee fat aspects of it. We have seen some fat mermaids kind of in this mermaid performer space, but this is the first time I've seen a fat merman. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about the idea of like seeing fat representation in mythological creatures, which
is kind of rare in a lot of ways.
Oh, very, yeah.
Fat in mythology is not a huge, well, I mean, it's not terribly shocking. You know, we've seen vast periods of food deprivation in our history where getting a decent beer gut would have been a massive achievement in that time period, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mythology, boys. Where can we add a little bit of fat into this?
So do you remember in What's Opera Doc, in the old Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny, there is a reenactment of Wagner's, I don't know if it's Tannhäuser but anyway, there's Brunhilde, as portrayed by Bugs Bunny, is on a massively fat, voluptuous white horse.
I freaking love that horse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that horse. That horse is burned into my memory.
Exactly, for a lot of us. And I would love to see the rest of that horse, so to speak, if that were a centaur. A really fat, voluptuous centaur.
I'm thinking of the physics of that, not in so much like reality, but the like jiggle physics.
There'll be a lot of jiggle physics happening.
I'm thinking we're missing out on something in that Fantasia Centaur sequence. Because, like,
yeah, exactly.
Well, this illustrates one of the most disturbing aspects of centaurs, that they have 2 rib cages.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And therefore, how many bellies are we talking about? Is it 2? Is there a connection between them? Is it all one kind of...
Michael, I am up for that discussion.
Horses aren't cud chewers, are they?
I thought you were going to talk about the thing with when horses are born, talking about like baby centaurs where like the horse body would just be running and the baby would be like flopping around.
I did see that, actually. That's...
I think that's interesting. And I think it's like, I feel like centaurs, like you picture like ripped. And then I feel like satyrs are kind of like more often like chubby. Satyrs are the bear centaurs.
Satyrs are definitely fatter. But they're also, they kind of represent like, I don't know if opulence is exactly the right word, but like partying and frolicking and, you know.
And then the whole thing with Bacchus and the fat Bacchus, and as opposed to the lean Dionysus.
Yeah. I was reading up on actual fat characters in Greek mythology, and the only one that it's more of a category of person rather than a character, but they were the male followers of Dionysus. Like they had the Maenads, who were like the crazed female followers who would rip you limb to limb, and then he was supposed to have these sort of like fat party boy followers too.
I guess we kind of saw that in the second season of True Blood. I feel like the sheriff Andy Belfleur kind of becomes one of those, which I didn't know about, but that makes sense.
Well, to be fair, everybody in the town becomes one. So
yeah, but I guess I didn't know that there was like a category for that kind of like fat crazed follower.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. We just don't associate fatness with divinity in general, right? Like, because our Greek mythologies we associate them with Greek statuary, which has this idealized musculature around it. So that kind of leaks into their pantheon. Even the god of partying, food and drink is usually portrayed as ripped in sort of classical portrayals of him
in Greek, but
in modern representations, he's usually a little bit more.
That's an important distinction, because as Dionysus, he's usually young and lean and ripped, but as Bacchus, the Roman analog, he is often bearded and chubby.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So we kind of have like a real life example of this happening. But what if? What if he were fat though?
So one of the mythological ones that I was looking at that I thought was a little weird is the Minotaur.
Oh, yeah.
So the Minotaur classically is a bull-headed man that ran around a labyrinth somewhere. And if I recall correctly, 8 innocent boys and girls that were sent into the labyrinth to keep him happy.
Minotaurs came up in the Discord recently.
Oh, my goodness.
They sure did.
But what I find so interesting is, like, even though like cows are one of the symbols of like fatness and, fertility and all of the good things associated with fatness, right? None of that ever sloshes over onto the Minotaur myth.
Oh, well, there's a reason for that, but yeah.
What's the reason, Dan?
Well, the reason the Minotaur exists is because of the unholy union of the king's wife made to fall in love with a bull. And so basically it is a story of monstrosity. It is a story of the queen giving birth to this monster, and they hide the offspring, the Minotaur, in the middle of a maze. That's why he's in the maze, to hide him from view, so no one will find out.
To hide the secret shame. But still, it's when you get these chimera monsters, chimeras are combinations of various real life animals, right? The Minotaur is one of those. They usually have some sort of essence of what the monsters are embedded into what they represent, right? With the Minotaur, I always thought it was kind of interesting that you don't get that so much. The symbol of what the bull means, of the bulls and cows, are symbols of plenty, of abundance, of reproduction, of fertility, of masculinity, and all that gets thrown out. So I always thought it was more interesting if the essence of the cow, the symbol of the cow was incorporated more into that myth. It might become less of a monster and more of sort of like a different story. It would just give rise to a different story. I don't know what that story would be, but like, imagine a Minotaur that is providing cheese and milk and dairy and plenty.
Don, I think that there's kind of like I feel like in the past couple of years, cow print kind of like became, I feel like, fashionable and kind of like lingerie type stuff.
Oh dear.
Like stretchy, sexy stuff. And then I also feel like there was like at the same time with like cow kink stuff.
Oh yeah.
Really?
In various shapes and forms, and like both with like men and women. And I feel like we're with the cow minotaur, we're just like halfway to sexy Labyrinth cow time.
I had no idea that was a thing.
I can name a particular, I guess I would call him not quite a porn star, but let's just say very known in certain circles. And he identifies as a cow dog. There's your chimera.
Oh, that sure is chimera.
I mean, there's this guy I follow on Instagram who like, I feel like kind of got a big following because he kind of looks like the baker in Kiki's Delivery Service. And he started doing these like photo reenactments of him posing as the character, which then got progressively sexier. And then he just kind of started doing more sexy stuff. And there was like a cow themed one very recently that was, I feel like, the most graphic little video where he like had a gag and he was in like cow underwear and had a bell and was just kind of shaking his butt. And it was like a joke about something. I can't remember the setup for it, but cow minotaurs are definitely a thing.
Well, I stand corrected.
One of the interesting things I thought that was pointed out in some of the discussion of the fat merman was the idea that if there were such things as merpeople, that they would very likely be fat rather than lean, because as we know, most marine mammals have a thick layer of fat as insulation for being in the water.
They probably have more in common with manatee than they would with dolphins.
Exactly.
Yeah, by a long shot.
So I am going to, raise my pitch, which is controversial. And I'm curious if it's the same as Michael's.
I think it might be. I think but keep going.
But whatever you're up to.
So I went to this, I just like automatically kind of go to like monster mode. And I was initially kind of thinking of like Arachne because I really loved that myth. But then I was like, I got to do Medusa.
Oh, no, we have different ones. Okay. Mine is worse.
Medusa is one of the classics.
But so my pitch is fat Medusa, and it's kind of like the Wicked approach where it's like Medusa is fat and she is like, she's fat, she's hot, and she also has snake hair, and she can turn people to stone, but it is not that she like, it is something she has control over. And basically like in response to fat phobia and the like, oh, you're grotesque, you're hideous, you're fat. It's like, yup. And then like, piss, bitch. She like turns people to stone in response to fat phobia.
Ew, you weigh so much. Well, guess what? Now you weigh more.
Now you don't have to look at it.
What it made me think of is that it's, as you say, she's fat, she's hot, she's got snakes for hair, and she's so beautiful that to look upon her gets men so hard. All of them is rock hard.
That is kind of funny. That feels very mythologically.
I don't know. I just like the idea of like, she's at the grocery store and like someone's like, you really shouldn't be buying that. It's like, hiss, bitch.
Yeah. They reach in to take their M&Ms out of their
statutory cleanup on aisle 4.
Okay. Well,
I'm excited for this.
I need to explain my line of thinking here before I get to it. So I was starting off, we were talking about myths, and of course the ones that I'm most familiar with are Greek myths. And so I was thinking of, the Greek statues carved out of marble, it's like still somehow the modern ideal for a person's body, and imagining what that would be like if they were fat and how that would have affected me as a kid who saw a lot of those kinds of statues growing up. And then I kind of went from that to Apollo, who's meant to be like the handsomest of all the male gods and god of music and of wit. And like, what if he were fat? And so I was kind of going down that line, like going into a god and less of a, an actual like creature. And then I remembered that it's Easter weekend.
Yes.
I just like imagining that maybe Jesus was fat, or what if? And then how many different stories and perceptions of Jesus does that change in like a snap? Like the whole hot Jesus on the cross thing, is that still a thing and now everyone likes fat? Or is that not a thing anymore because we don't want to show his body? Like, how would our current day perception of fatness being bad be flipped if he were famously fat?
Or has it been expunged? And, of course he was fat, but we're not going to show that.
Yeah, maybe he actually was. Who knows?
I'm thinking about the fishes and loaves thing.
Yeah.
And like, how does that, is it like, well,
he was just hungry.
He made it go so much further, or it's like, well, of course he made more fishes and loaves as a miracle.
And he like symbolically gives his body to his followers. Like there's that element of it.
Oh my.
No, well, that's not what I meant, Dan, but leave it to you.
This is my body, baby.
No, but it's just like, do people respond to that type of symbolic or metaphorical gesture differently when it's a fat body?
I don't know. I feel like in Asia, where you have Buddhism and you have more representations of the Buddha that do include some fat images of him, you still have just as rampant fat-phobia there.
And I don't know, but my question would be, are the people who follow him regarding him the same way that modern day Christians regard Jesus? Because there is like a rabidness, I think, like the whole hot Jesus thing is a thing.
Oh yeah.
But also there's like a whole Christian weight loss thing. Like, I just feel like the butterfly effect, there's so many ripples from just like the standard depiction of Jesus where fat, where it would be like, I can't even like begin to wrap my head around.
There's also the added context of like him on the cross is supposed to be emphasizing the fact that he's just been tortured. Like it's supposed to be representing of the physical ordeal and the draining of the body and all that stuff that he went through. So if he was large and full, it might not portray what they're going for, you know?
Interesting.
A little bloated from all the fish witches. See, it's because Fat Jesus is all about fishes and loaves. And that's why we have the McFish on Fridays during Lent.
Well, it's interesting because like I'm not an expert on this. This is armchair research that's been done. But it's a god of prosperity and luck that sort of got absorbed into it. Buddha.
Yeah.
I think that when you see Jesus handing out the loaves and fishes, you're not getting fat Jesus. You're getting long-haired, blonde, beautiful white Jesus in those portrayals. And that's the equivalent.
But maybe the more interesting thought is like, what if he were actually fat and nobody knows it because of the agreement not to record it that way? Or not to represent it that way when you start seeing all of the art pop up.
Mm-hmm. Or it was not an issue worth mentioning, and that's why it never got reported.
Yep. I think that would be very interesting.
Like they also didn't report on his height.
There was also a sort of collective agreement at some point in time where his portrayal on the cross went from, this like emaciated, like sort of skin and bones, sort of bleeding figure to now he's got abs. and why does he have abs? Why do we need to represent Jesus on the cross with like defined abs?
Or sex appeal in general? Like that seems weird to me.
And that actually ties back into the whole Trump thing we were talking about at the top of the show, which is that idea of Christian masculinism.
Well, anyway, I know it wasn't really the assignment, but once I was on that, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
No, that is fascinating.
I love it when people play with religious perceptions. There was this show that ran for two or three seasons called American Gods.
Oh, yeah.
Their portrayal of Jesus in that was freaking fascinating. Yeah. I loved that portrayal of Jesus, where when you finally meet Jesus, you meet all 500,000 versions of it, right? It's every version of Jesus that everyone believes in is showing up at the same place. I feel like that's what Christianity is today for a lot of people.
Well, after all of that, Don, do we have a special and interesting bit today?
We do. So since it's nearly Easter as we record this, I thought maybe we would talk about, we've talked about variations of mythological creatures. I thought maybe we talk about some of the ways other spiritual beings depictions have been played around a bit with. And so today we're going to dip into Christian saints.
Oh my.
And Christian iconography that have done some interesting takes on reality over the years. So one of these, for example, Saint Christopher is one of these Catholic saints that he's probably one of those saints that never actually existed. He's best known for this story where he's what's called a river man. He's depicted as a giant man who carries people across the river for Christ. And then one day this small child asks to be carried across the river. And as he's carrying the child across the river, the child's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And he's nearly crushed under the weight of this child. And when he gets to the far side, he says, "Why are you so heavy?" And the child says, "Today you carried the weight of all the sins of all Christians, for I am the Christ child," and he disappears. So anyway, that is a legit Catholic saint. However, due to a mistranslation associated with his name, this giant Canaanite who carried people across the river is portrayed with a very interesting, let's go with quirk. How is Saint Christopher traditionally portrayed? 1, with blue skin. 2, with the head of a dog. 3, with 3 skulls tied at his waist. or 4, with flames shooting from his nostrils?
I'm going with skulls.
3 skulls at his waist.
I think my guess is the skulls also, because that's like dark and creepy, but also still plausible.
We got 2 for skulls. We're going to the full Dalsim here. Trevor, what are you looking for?
I got to go with flames.
Oh.
Flames shooting from his nostrils.
That sounds
right.
good. I'm channeling my grandmother who thought my brother was named Christopher because that was his middle name and she didn't hear the first name. And so she just like loved St. Christopher. So I'm, Grandma, please let it be flames.
The St. Christopher is a very strange one in the fact that he was frequently portrayed with the head of a dog in a lot of his portrayals. Somewhere in the 12th century, they stopped doing that. But apparently it was because of a mistranslation. He was a Canaanite, meaning he was from Canaan. But apparently it was mistranslated to a canine knight.
A canine
That's not
knight.
People
Christian.
thought he was a race of a dog-headed people they used to think existed, apparently, or something like that. St. Christopher isn't the only one to have gotten a bit of a makeover due to mistranslations being passed on to the artist commissioned to make great works. There are multiple depictions of Moses that portray him as having what? 1. Horns. 2. Hooves. 3. A tail. Or 4. 2 children.
I was going to say floaties, but that's not a choice, huh?
No floaties. Just a hovercraft.
Well, get the whole river thing. I want to say horns. I want to say horns, I think.
You're going with horns? Okay, we got 1 for horns.
I want to say tail.
I'll go hooves.
All right. The correct answer is, in fact, horns.
Yep.
The horns of Moses are a thing. Because apparently a mistranslation of the Bible, they depicted him as having radiating light.
Yes.
Which projecting from his head. The translation was horns of light or horns.
Horns became, in some places, a symbol for the wisdom and is the reason that a lot of people, even today, believe that Jews have tiny horns.
Yeah. I will say my father's ex-girlfriend met someone in the 80s who asked to see her horns.
Yeah.
There you go. Saint Wilgefortis had an unfortunate life. According to the tales, the young Wilgefortis was the daughter of a pagan king and had taken a perpetual vow of virginity. Her father, despite her holy oath, wished to marry her off to another king. To escape the coming wedding, Wilgefortis prayed to God for a way out. The pictures of her show both the miracle and the result of it. How is Saint Wilgefortis portrayed? 1. Walking across a river while carrying a dead lamb. 2. Rising up to heaven on the smoke from her funeral pyre. 3. Carrying the head of her suitor surrounded by fire. Or 4. Bearded and crucified.
I recognize so many other myths in the other choices.
That's because I'm a devious little bastard.
What's the first one?
The first one is walking across a river while carrying a dead lamb.
Let's go with that one.
Yeah, that one is. Lambs are popular in Christianity.
We got some red hot dead lamb action here.
Yeah, we got Salome, we got Iphigenia. I'm going to go with the lamb.
The lamb? All right, we got 3 for lamb. The correct answer, however, is bearded and crucified. So the full story of this legend, she prayed to God for a way out of this marriage, and God gave her a beard. And the next morning, the suitor was so horrified that he broke off the wedding, and her father was so horrified that he had her crucified on the spot. Wow, not the happiest of endings.
Wow.
All right. We got a fun one here. We got to end on a high note, right?
Yeah.
So one of the richest places to find Christian art from medieval times is the illuminated manuscripts created by monks in various European monasteries. These books were richly and beautifully illustrated by hand, but something not everyone has realized is that in the margins of some of these books, the illustrators occasionally just went to freaking town and just drew so much weird crap, ranging from demonic to sexual to comedic to holy, all over the place. What animal was featured most prominently doing what? 1. Dogs pretending to be people. 2. Cats playing cutely with various objects. 3. Crows terrorizing hapless monks. Or 4. Rabbits committing wholesale slaughter.
Oh dear. Just like in the movie, that Monty Python movie.
I just want to say dogs pretending to be people. Like they think they're people. It's adorable.
Yeah, that's as good as I've got.
There's a long tradition of that, dating back to St. Christopher, I believe. I'm going with that too. I got nothing better.
All right, we got lots of dogs pretending to be people, but the truth is, those manuscripts were loaded up with rabbits committing wholesale slaughter.
Oh my God.
Oh, well, at least it wasn't the fucking kitties.
Well, and the funny part is they not only is it rabbits just running amok, doing horrible things to hanging up hunters by their heels, they drain them by blood, riding war snails into battle against human knights, like
war snails,
crazy stuff. But when they go into the reasoning behind why the monks were doing this, no one has a solid reason.
They were fucking high.
The guess is they were bored, they were drunk, they just wanted something different to do. So they just went to town.
Oh, I love it. I just, the whole, riding their trusted snail as a steed.
Hold on, I need to look this up.
The snail, you got to see some of this art. The war snails with lance-armed rabbits riding their backs are hilarious.
I'm sorry. So why doesn't Hummel make those figurines?
I would buy that. I would buy that.
Awesome.
So Trevor, if we find some of these Hummel war snail figurines for our listeners, where could they go to find out about them?
We're on Instagram and Blue Sky as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as Big Fat Gay Podcast. Leave us 5 stars there. Leave us 5 stars or a review on your preferred podcast platform. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BigFatGayPod. See the articles we talked about, or sign up for our newsletter, or join our Discord at BigFatGayPod.com. Baby. Well, maybe you're in the labyrinth. You have escaped the clutches of the sexy cow minotaur. You turn the corner, but you've made a wrong turn. It's the war rabbits on snails. So,
oh
no! They're coming at you very slowly.
You only have days to make it out.
It's the snails.
So watch out.